generating income with telehealth nutrition services. Thank you everyone who has tuned in. I'm sure more will be joining in, but I'm really excited about this webinar, about this presentation. And who is this designed for? I'm really looking for nutrition professionals, dietitians who are working in private practice or thinking of working in private practice and are either already incorporating some virtual care into your practice or you're really interested in getting started with telehealth. And so this presentation is a little bit more focused on how you're going to actually use telehealth and how you're going to make money with telehealth, and a little bit less on the background of telehealth and what it is and the laws and the regulations. We're going to touch on that shortly, but it's really more about how are you going to implement telehealth. All right. So just our agenda, briefly, what is telehealth? Why is it really valuable, especially for dietitians and nutrition professionals? Why right now? Some of those common challenges, which maybe some of you are experiencing with getting started with telehealth, how we're going to deliver our virtual care. Hint, hint, HIPAA compliance is really important when it comes to telehealth. And then on top of that, we really are going to spend most of our time talking about how to create new revenue streams with telehealth. And this is going to be, if you're self-pay or you're insurance-based. So either way, I do speak to, to both styles of practices. And really, I want to just show you how you can implement and build these services into your practice. A little bit about me, more than just a disembodied voice on your computer. I'm Stefanie, I'm a dietitian. I live in New York City, and my background is clinical, but I worked in a group nutrition practice for the last 5 years. And I actually very recently made the transition, and now I'm completely 100% virtual private practice. And my interest in technology has been really prevalent throughout my career. Even as a dietetic intern, I was very interested in technology, the apps that were coming out, and how virtual practices can really improve nutritional care. And I really believe strongly in the benefits of virtual care, and I think it's the future of where dietetics is heading. And it really allows us to provide quality nutritional care to more people. So because of my interest, I've been involved in a lot of startup tech companies as far as roundtables, which is basically when you go in and you share your pain points as a dietitian and give your feedback on the product or the platform that they're trying to build. I even piloted my own virtual women's wellness program. And to do that, I used Healthie, which over time somehow segued to me actually working for Healthie. So disclaimer, I actually work in Healthie marketing. I still see clients, so I do have my practice, I do see clients, but I also am working with this platform that I use and I love. And so mostly my job here at Healthie and my passion with nutrition and helping other professionals is to help other dietitians be successful in their practice. And so it's something that I think is super important. I think there's a lot of lack of support, a lot of lack of mentorship for dietitians when you're starting your practice and growing your practice. We kind of have to figure out everything as we go along, right? All the tools, all the technology, marketing, business, sales. So it can be really challenging and it can be really lonely. So my job here with Healthie is I write a lot of content, I touch base with a lot of providers, I mentor, and I give webinars trying to share what I've learned here with you. And I hope that you can really take this and implement it in your practice. That is my goal. So just a little bit, telehealth, in case you're not super familiar, telehealth is just this general term used to cover telecommunications. It's the exchange of electronic information, and specifically with health, we're providing long-distance healthcare. As a broad term, nutrition is sort of underneath that telehealth. We can provide nutrition care under telehealth, but specifically that term is telenutrition. And beyond, which I think people don't always realize, is telehealth is not just video conferencing. That's what we usually think, just a video like this, one-on-one video. That's what we consider telehealth. But telehealth is also any other digital exchange of information. So email, e-fax, phone sessions, chat or messenger, right? If you're using text or messaging with clients, programs, if you've created an online program, which we will talk about, all of this is exchanging nutrition information digitally, and that falls under the umbrella of telenutrition. And this is really important to keep in mind, because when we're talking about how to make money with telehealth, we have to think of these other ways beyond video conferencing, although that's our main way. How else can we utilize these other platforms and ways to deliver information to make some money and to provide some service? So telehealth, despite all of its benefits, has a lot of challenges. And getting started with telehealth can be really tricky, for myself included, even working in a technology and a telehealth company. The biggest reason why is telehealth laws are murky. Basically what it boils down to is every state sets their telehealth laws. So each state by state, the laws are going to be a little bit different. And it's very hard to know overall for every state what those laws are. When you counsel a client virtually, you must adhere to the laws and the licensure requirements in the state that the client resides in. That's the bottom line now. And so if you're seeing clients in your own state where you are licensed, then you're good to go. But if you're providing care across state lines, which a lot of times we do want to do as a virtual practice, we want to reach as many people as we can. So if we want to counsel clients that reside in another state or another country, we kind of have to get familiar with what their state laws are. There are not a lot of great resources. There's not a lot of great websites that is just going to neatly detail all this information out for you. And the reason being is that laws change. It's hard to stay up to date on that, and it's really hard to translate it into sort of the vernacular, boil it down. We do dietitians need to know. So it's this sort of ever-present challenge of how do we communicate with what those laws are, and how do we really provide resources for dietitians to utilize. So on top of that, the challenges to telehealth, and one is, I mentioned licensure laws as well for dietitians. We know state by state there are different licensure laws for certifications. And so on the next slide, I'll show you how we can stay on top of that. And if you are practicing telehealth, where you can get started and at least knowing, okay, which clients' states that they reside in can I counsel on. Another challenge is HIPAA compliance. It is the #1 thing that I always want to impress upon you the importance of is when we are digitally communicating with clients, it is our job, ethically, we have to keep their private health information secure. And so if we're not using technology that does that, we are at fault. And we never want to put ourselves or our business at risk. So we do have to be a little bit vigilant in making sure that the technology we're using and the way that we're communicating with our clients is HIPAA compliant. And then on top of that, as I mentioned, there's limited peer support and mentorship. I think we're all trying to figure this out on our own, and there's not a lot of great resources or a lot of organizations that really help dietitians who want to practice virtually support each other and share information. So I'm hoping that this presentation can do a little bit of that for you today. So where to start if you're getting started with telehealth, please check out the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics licensure map. I've included the link here. I'll make sure you have it. I will record this webinar and send it out to you afterwards. And so I'll make sure that this link is there. But it's basically this interactive map that you can use. And when you hover over the different states, as you can see, they're all different colors. It will tell you a little bit about the laws and regulations and the licensure requirements. And so what this means is, for example, I live in New York, which is a green state. We do not have licensure here. We have certification, which means that other providers who are not necessarily, dietitians, registered dietitians with this certificate can provide nutritional care. Versus, and I'm sure you all saw recently the news with Florida, with the health coach that was providing nutritional care. Florida has very strict licensure laws, and they have practice exclusivity, which means if you are registered dietitians, you are licensed in the state of Florida, you are the only person qualified to provide medical nutrition therapy. So if virtually, me living in New York, I am not licensed in Florida, I would proceed with caution. I would not counsel in those red states because I do not have licensure in those red states. So I think that's really important to keep in mind, and this map can at least give you a starting point on which states you may be able to counsel in. Also keep in mind that you can, sorry, little update notice, that you can, let's see, hopefully we're back, okay, that you can get licensed in multiple states. And so if you really want to counsel clients in Florida, then you can look online. The Academy does link to sort of their credentialing board, where you can look into what it takes to become licensed in the state of Florida and the licensing fee there. So you can become licensed in many other states if you're providing virtual care. And the last thing, just on where to start, I want to make sure that in your practice, whenever you're providing care virtually to a client, you should have them sign a telehealth consent form. Some states require it and some states don't. So at the very least, you always want to document in your chart notes that the client consented to a virtual session, which could be a video chat or it could be a phone session. But I think the most secure way is to have a policy form for your practice, and whenever you're going to counsel someone virtually, just have them sign off on that form. And I'm happy to include a link for you to download a sample copy of that telehealth consent form. So HIPAA compliance, I already mentioned, super, super important. We are at risk as dietitians. We are responsible for keeping that information secure. So for example, we're doing this webinar on Zoom. I'll mention Zoom quite a bit because it is one of my favorite virtual webinar platforms, but Zoom is HIPAA compliant. And with that, I know that if I am conducting a session or a client call, I know that I'm using a technology that is HIPAA compliant, which basically just means you can't, even if it's a virtual call, video chat, I mean, this is what sort of the biggest question is. So if you're doing a video call, you know, how is that information going to be leaked? Well, guess what? People can hack into that video call, right? And now you're having a conversation with the client, scary, but you're having a conversation with them, and somebody could be listening in. So platforms that are HIPAA compliant really take extra measures to make sure that their platform is encrypted, that it's difficult to really hack into that, and it's really keeping your client's information and your sessions private. So you can also look at using technology like an EHR platform. There's quite a few out there that have a HIPAA compliant telehealth feature built into it. So for example, the reason why I use Healthie is because it's my charting platform, my HR platform, my scheduling platform, but it also has a telehealth platform. And so two ways that Healthie does telehealth is one, either right through the platform or the app. So clients, it kind of looks like FaceTime, but it's using the Healthie app. But Healthie also integrates with Zoom, which is again HIPAA compliant, and making sure that if I do group calls or I do a Zoom call, it is also integrated and it's also secure. So one word that you may see and kind of what determines if a company is HIPAA compliant or not, something that you'll look for is if they have a BAA, a business associate agreement. So Healthie, for example, if you wanted one, we could send you one. And basically this means that the company takes responsibility, takes ownership in ensuring that their platform is HIPAA compliant. So it puts the ownership on the company. And if the company does not have this agreement, does not want to send you this agreement, then they are not probably HIPAA compliant. Other forms of HIPAA compliant communication are encrypted emails, different than regular emails, so encrypted emails and phone sessions. So you can have a phone call, but again, I would always document it in your chart note that the client consented to a phone session or you had them sign your telehealth consent form. Not HIPAA compliant, text messaging, Skype, FaceTime, regular email, right? Your Gmail, your Google Docs, all of these are not HIPAA compliant. Skype, for example, does not have a BAA, to my knowledge, and so they cannot, ensure or take ownership of ensuring that Skype is a HIPAA compliant platform. So I'm mentioning these because as a dietitian and in my past, and I have used these platforms too without knowing, I want you to be aware that this is not the best way to communicate with your clients. And part of this is that when you're like, okay, well, my phone, why can't I just text my client or FaceTime from my phone? Well, the problem here is that your phone, one, can get lost, can get stolen. If you have, sensitive information about your clients or text with your clients, it's, someone could take your phone and then have access to that email. Someone can hack into your email, or somebody else can have access to your computer, right? If you don't have a password on there. So it's something to keep in mind. This is how we, typically do business, but it isn't technically HIPAA compliant. And as your business evolves and putting these best practices in place is really important when you're incorporating telehealth into your business. So this is just an example from the Healthie website. You're going to be looking for things like this, HIPAA compliant. We're stating it out there, and most of these platforms, if they are going to put it up front and center. And then just other ones are like the PIPEDA, that's for Canada, sort of their HIPAA compliance. PCI certified, that means that the payment processor, how clients are going to pay you and store their credit card information on the platform is also secure. So you can feel really good when you pick technology that has these labels there. Okay, so what we really want to talk about, making money with telehealth. There's sort of 6 points and 6 suggestions. Some may work for you, some may not, but I want to just give you a good overview of what those could look like. And so this is just a brief list, and now we're going to talk about them one-on-one, each of these points. So probably the most common way that we're going to provide virtual care to clients is one-on-one video sessions or phone sessions. And you may be doing this already with your clients, and you may not. I worked with an insurance-based practice, my group practice that I worked with for 5 years. We were an insurance-based practice. And so virtual check-ins was a little bit tricky. One, insurance does not always cover for virtual sessions. But I think that it's a service that you can still offer, and it's something we did offer in our group practice, is that, there's 2 ways to do it. One, if a client needs more accountability, we can encourage them to have these shorter, briefer, maybe 15 or 20-minute virtual calls to check in between their in-person sessions. And this really helps them to sort of have that touch point, have that support. As an insurance-based practice, we offer them as a self-pay option. And so you can do a bit of both. You could do a mix of self-pay and insurance. So we always let clients know, listen, a phone session, a video session is going to be self-pay, and you are more than welcome to do that. We can schedule it in as you would need. And if anything pops up, you want to check in, you're struggling in between your session's not for another week or 2 weeks, you want to check in, hey, it's an option. It's a way for us to provide a really valuable service, have that accountability with our clients, and also generate a little bit extra income. I also would highly recommend that you always offer clients to do a virtual check-in in lieu of canceling a session. So let's say they were going to have an in-person session, things come up, right? And in our group practice, what we did was we set the rate for a virtual check-in to be the same as the cancellation fee. And so, for example, if your cancellation fee is $50 within, if they don't cancel before 24 hours, you can also make a one-time virtual check-in $50. And so you can present it to the client and say, listen, I know your schedule is changing, but instead of, paying the cancellation fee, why don't you do a virtual check-in? And that way you're still providing, that you're having that touch point with the client. They're getting support. A lot of times they're going to cancel because they don't feel like they're making a lot of progress or have a lot to report. And that's probably the best time for them to check in. So I think really strategically using these between session virtual check-ins is a really great way to connect with your clients and provide more care. Client packages, sort of the big question when you're setting up your practice for self-pay practices especially, is do you create a la carte services or do you create packages or both? And so I'm going to nudge you a little bit in the direction. I actually do both. I do have a la carte and I do have packages, but When you bundle in telehealth services into your client packages, it really increases the value of your service, right? And so some of these things that you can include in your package and show to clients, you know, when you work with me, when you buy a package, you get not only an initial session and 3 follow-ups, you also get this. Right? And so some things are like food journal reviews, those short virtual check-ins. Perhaps you offer a virtual group that maybe meets monthly, something like that, and they can also access that. Maybe you have an online community group, between session chat support. And I would really emphasize the chat support and the food journal review. Being in a past insurance-based practice and provider, this is time that we don't get paid for as dietitians, right? You, especially for an insurance-based practice, your clients come in, they pay for their session, but then we're really trying to engage them and support them and answer their questions and give them some accountability in between sessions. And so generally, this is time that we're not getting paid for. And when you price your package and you're including these telehealth items in there, I'd really like you to think about the time that realistically you would spend with a client doing that. How many minutes a week would you spend doing food journal reviews? Do you want to sit down and for all your clients, you know, do food journal reviews once a week or 3 times a week? Are you going to spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes doing it? Are you going to be answering their questions, lengthy questions, right? So I would calculate how much time a week you realistically would expect to pay on that service. So let's say 10 minutes a week doing food journal reviews for one client. And I would multiply that by what your hourly rate is. What's your bottom line rate? Because I want you to include that time in your package price. So don't undersell, we're upselling, we're increasing the rates and the value of our package by providing more service, but make sure you're not giving your time away for free. You're accounting for that extra time that you may need to spend. So client packages, I wanted to show you a couple examples here. This is a friend, Chelsea, and she has 2 different types of packages. So one is her like jumpstart your health. Sorry, my screen might be blocking your view, but beyond weekly sessions, she's also including unlimited messaging support in between appointments. She's including personalized meal planning tools and recipes, food shopping lists, free Healthie app use with the food-based logging. So if you're not familiar with Healthie, there is a photo-based food journal. And for me, that is the main selling point because I am tired of chasing down clients via, for email and them sending me their spreadsheets of their food journals. They're adding me as a friend on MyFitnessPal or Lose It. It's very hard to keep track of all of your clients and all the formats they're keeping their food journals in. And so I've really transitioned over to my clients get added to Healthie. They can log their foods, pictures of their food, and any comments and feedback, and then I can scroll through, literally, it's like Facebook. I can scroll through and see all my clients' recent logs and make any feedbacks or give them a little notification that I've seen it. Makes my life easier and a really valuable service that you can include here in your package. And then she's also including between session support. So that's probably more like the chat support and messaging and answering questions. Similar, this is Brittany, dietitian Brittany, and she again also has a 3-month plan and a 6-month plan. And the way that she's really bundled it is to have like a VIP package. We can also call that a concierge package, and that's when you're bundling in all these extra services, the food journal reviews, or 3 days a week food journal reviews, 5 days a week. Brittany's offering, and phone, text, email support. So all of this really upsells the value of her package and makes it that VIP concierge package. So consider that. If you offer packages, what can you add to it to increase the value and incorporate telehealth that way? And just the last one, it's me, hello, my package. This is my getting started package. And very similar, I just boiled it down, made it simple. It's an initial session, it's 3 follow-ups, you get message support, and you get weekly food diary reviews for feedback and accountability. And so that's what felt good for me and for my clientele. All right, so next way to make some money with telehealth, online programs and courses. I cannot express to you how life-changing this can be for your practice. And you know, an online program, or specifically an automated program, is a way for you to kind of compile all of the resources and support and things that you typically do for like one client, but put it into one educational automated tool. And so it sends out to your clients, and basically you can enroll subscribers, and it could be existing clients. Perhaps you're giving a value add to existing clients, putting it into a program, or you're using it to market to new clients. My background now is marketing, and so I think it's really, really valuable. And there's two different ways that you can do this. You can create evergreen programs, which mean that they are your fundamental, basic meal, programs. So perhaps it's like meal planning 101. Doesn't matter when the client signs up. It's not seasonal. It's something that you've created and you can continue to market for the next year or years to come with maybe little tweaks and updates. Or you can create sort of a one-time program. So maybe you wanted to do a wellness challenge to drive up some business over the summer. And so you've created this sort of summer fitness wellness packet program. And it really helps people feel engaged and accountable. When you create a program, typically, or at least through Healthie, when you do a program, you can include emails. So it's basically like you're writing them out and then they automatically send. You can include any videos. For a lot of providers, videos is a really great way for them to connect with their clients. And so they create these sort of pre-recorded videos, and then you can schedule them to go out. Maybe it's once a week. They were, for 12 weeks, they receive your video, your 20-minute video. And then in between, they get some emails, they get some handouts or resources that you've put together. So handouts as well, documents you can attach, including your program. And then you can also include things like questionnaires, quizzes, surveys. I think of it like homework assignments to really help people stay on track with their program and to be a little bit more interactive. So with that being said, I just wanted to show you kind of like what Healthie's program tool looks like. If you're already a Healthie user, this is for the Practice Plus plan and up. And so if you're on small practice or beginnings, you may not see this programs tool here, but on Practice Plus you will, and you are able to create these programs. And so it's super simple. You go to the programs tool, you go to create program, and then what you can do is basically give it a title, description, benefits, image, and then you can, write out your, maybe I can just show you. Let's see, hopefully you can see this. Okay. Okay, nope, I think you can't see it. Okay. Sorry about that. But basically, you just go into the programs tool, and then it will allow you, it'll ask you like which day you want this to be sent out. So let's say you want your first email to go out on the first day. 2 days later, you want clients to get another email or a document or video. And so you can schedule it out over time. And you can add clients, and as they get added, they don't all have to be added at the same time necessarily. For an evergreen program, for example, they can be added at any time, and they start at day one in that program. And then with Healthie as well, you can, clients can access their program that they've purchased on their phone through the Healthie app. And so that's what this screenshot is showing you on the right here. It's sort of the client-facing version. And so they can really create, complete your program on the go. And I think that's really revolutionary for dietitians, and one of the best ways that we can provide really quality care, really valuable information, and get paid for it, and to reach a lot of clients at once. This is passive income. You create your program one time up front, and then it can continue to run, and you can continue to market it, and you can continue to enroll clients in it and continue to make money. The truth is, at the end of the day, you can only counsel for so many hours a week. And realistically, that number is 20, maybe 30 hours. You cannot counsel clients for 8 hours straight a day. One, there's a lot of work you have to do in your practice as far as administrative and business and marketing and social media. There's a lot of other time that you need to spend growing your business, but also counseling is exhausting. I love counseling, but after 5 years, and even my other colleagues in the group, there was sort of a max for how many clients we could see a day and how much counseling we could do, especially if you're working with clients like eating disorder clients, which I do a lot, and it can be really emotionally tasking. So to create a program like this is super helpful and is a way for me to make money and deliver this service without having to sit down with client after client after client to kind of give the same information. And so I would think if you're thinking about your program, I would say like what's really valuable to your client, your ideal client. So if you're working with busy moms, when women are your ideal client who want to be healthier, then perhaps like a meal planning or like a meal prep 101 program. If you work with eating disorders, perhaps a mindful eating or intuitive eating program. If you work with different disease populations, diabetes, you could do a diabetes 101 program and really give your clients the basics and allow them to go at their own pace as well. I think that's also why programs are super valuable. When we sit down and we have clients and transitioning from clinical to private practice, this is a very big difference, is when you sit down, when in clinical you go in to see the client, you want to give them all the information you can because you may not get another chance to follow up with them. Private practice, you learn you gotta have to hold back. You can't overwhelm them with too much information and too many handouts and too much knowledge and too many goals. You really have to sort of drip out this information. And a program is the perfect way to drip out that information in an automated way. All right, so programs, webinars. We're doing a webinar. This is a free webinar, but you can do a webinar for a fee. There is a reason why a webinar is really effective when marketing your business and getting new clients, and it's a really valuable service to offer, is because video allows you to build an instant connection with prospective clients. They really feel like they get to know you when they see you on video. And in private practice, especially with self-pay practices, that connection is super important because it can take a lot of nurturing to get clients to feel comfortable enough and feel like they know you enough and have enough touch points to be ready to book with you. And so video is very effective to do that. You can offer a webinar for existing clients, or you can record it and then market it as a marketing tool for prospective clients for a fee. With Healthie, basically you can host a webinar, you can download it, and then you can include it in a package, right? And so maybe you want to do something like a diabetes 101 webinar where you give a presentation similar to this, and now you've done that presentation one time, you've downloaded it, and you can include it in a package, or you can use it as a marketing tool, put links to it on your website, on your social pages. And so webinars is a really great way to do that. Also, when people sign up for a webinar, it's usually an exchange. They got to put in their email, right? And so when we're trying to build and market our practice, building up your mailing list, super important. We want those touch points. How are you going to nurture those relationships if you don't have any touch points or ways to communicate with them? So you can collect a whole bunch of emails when you do a webinar, and then you can put them through an email campaign, which just, maybe it's a newsletter that you send out, or just a little drip campaign as far as a couple of emails to help nurture them, to get them to, prospective clients to know your business, to know your philosophy, to know your services, and feel compelled to book. And then, so just how are we doing webinars? Sometimes we're talking about telehealth and it can be really abstract. It's like, great, webinar, I understand that, but how am I going to offer a webinar? Zoom, again, you can also just get a Zoom subscription. And so independently of any other technology that you use. And remember, Zoom is HIPAA-compliant. WebEx, I think, is another popular platform that dietitians use. It's also HIPAA-compliant. And then, again, telehealth platforms that you choose, EHR telehealth platforms like Healthie. We do on that Practice Plus and up, you can do group webinars. It's integrated with Zoom, and you can host your webinar right through the platform to up to 75 attendees. On the video and virtual conversation. The next step here is virtual support groups. This one I find to be very interesting as a form of generating income for practice, mostly because it was a big pain point in our group practice. We were insurance-based and we were in person primarily. And what the issue was is that we could never really find, even though clients were asking for it, specifically for weight loss and specifically for eating disorders, clients were asking for more support, or they really needed more support. Meeting with their dietitian once a week or once every 2 weeks really wasn't enough accountability, and it wasn't enough to really help them. And so we would refer out to a lot of other sort of group services if we could find them, like Overeaters Anonymous, but it wasn't always the environment or the right fit for clients. And so we would kind of get stumped and be like, okay, great, you need more accountability, you need more care, groups would be great for you, but we can't really provide them. And our limitations being in New York City was finding the space to host a group was very difficult. We have our offices, but those were really just designed for a couple of clients at best. But to find a space or a conference room that we could rent, it was very hard to find that. And then it would increase the rates that we would have to charge clients per group session. And video group sessions really help to solve both of those pain points, both of those problems. And so, one, you don't have the overhead costs, so you don't have to find the space, and then you don't have to pay the extra cost for the space. And so you can do your group sessions and price it really affordably for clients to be able to join. And group sessions, again, can be something that you run ongoing, like an evergreen group support. Clients can join in at any time, or you can do a 12-week group support session. Other ideas when you're doing groups is perhaps partnering with other wellness professionals. It's something that I explored and I think is super valuable, particularly when we were looking to launch an eating disorder support group. I definitely connected with a bunch of therapists and who specialize in eating disorders and would be very willing to do a joint group session. And so that can also be done virtually. So it can be, a dietitian and a therapist, and you deliver these group sessions once a week for the next 10 weeks. Corporate wellness, when you're looking about how to expand your practice and services, corporate wellness is a very wonderful way to do that. And so specifically with corporate wellness, perhaps you'll do something like a lunch and learn, go in, give a presentation to a team, but you can also do things like a wellness challenge, or this group video option as part of like team camaraderie and everybody learning together. They can all tune in virtually. So it's sort of working with the company and proposing it as an option, and then seeing what would fit their needs and what they would be interested in and budget for that. Very important, and I'm sure you've already thought about this, when you have clients working with you in a group setting, HIPAA compliance. I mean, obviously they're going to know about each other, going to see each other. So I think that it's really important that you have a virtual group session counseling waiver. And basically that waiver is going to say, hey, I acknowledge this is a group setting, so all of my information is not going to be necessarily private, and I'm okay with that and I agree to that. I will also include this with the telehealth consent form. Always with the forms and the policies, please edit them and have your lawyer look at them so that you're making sure that you're following, best practices for your business, for your state, following laws. So they're samples for you, and I think that's a really great start, but edit it and have a legal eye look at it. And the last way we can generate some money with telehealth, and I think this is a particularly clever way to do it, is monthly subscriptions. It's not something that we've always considered, being in my background with the group practice, especially because we were insurance-based. But again, thinking about the time that we spend chatting with clients or emailing with clients or checking in with clients in between, and as an insurance-based practice, that was time that we really wouldn't get paid for. And so one way to go about that, and I call this, I kind of broken down monthly subscriptions and how to think about them, is as an accountability subscription. So that could be literally something that they just pay for a la carte, through journal reviews, chat support, and it's just a flat, a monthly fee, $20, $30, $50, whatever is worth your time and how much time you're gonna dedicate to that service. right? So you can create something like an accountability subscription. You can create something that's more of an actionable subscription. And so meal planning is really common for dietitians and nutrition professionals, that perhaps every month or every week the client gets a meal plan for the week and some sample recipes. We tend to provide these kind of for free. We create them, or we create them for an individual client, but I want you to think ahead, and I want you to think of how you can actually share this with multiple clients, have them sign up for your monthly meal plan subscription, and then you send it out once a week or once a month to those enrolled clients. Subscription can also be support oriented. So a lot of us do have community support groups or closed Facebook group. Again, have that waiver form signed off for clients who are enrolling in there, because they will see each other's profiles and names. And so, you do want to make sure that they're at least consenting to that. But a closed support group is something that could be really beneficial for your practice, again, self-pay or insurance-based. And within that community group, different than your business page. Your Facebook business page is very one-sided. You're just posting updates about your practice, your business, your care. You're using it as a marketing tool to gain new clients. But then other clients or existing clients can have access to maybe a closed group that you run. Perhaps it's an eating disorder support group, or it's a healthy eating or a meal planning support group. And within that group, you're providing sort of exclusive information and updates and tools and resources. And for that, perhaps clients will want to pay a monthly subscription. Again, the rate is really up to you and in your business and the time that you spend to this, but perhaps it's $20 a month and they get access to your closed community group. And the last way to think about subscriptions is through education. So you can, similar to a program, you can also think of a monthly subscription, perhaps instead of like a 12-week program. Maybe it's something that you create and once a month you send out, and it's a collection of resources, articles, videos, handouts. It can be sort of like an elaborate newsletter that you send out, but maybe more tailored to your clients who want to enroll. So let's say it's like mindful eating. It's for your eating disorder clients who want to eat more mindfully or intuitive eating. And every month you send out a collection of this information and resources and guides to help them take their knowledge to the next level and really reinforce the work that you do together in session, which is super awesome. Right? So always think about your client. Some of these may apply for you, but always, 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 marketing 101, who is your client? I always want you to think of what their pain points are, what their biggest challenges are, and no matter what telehealth service that you're providing them, it should really help answer that problem and help them with that transformation that they're looking for. All right, so I think that's everything that I had to say today. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, but if you have any questions, there is a little Q&A box, and I'll do my best to answer any questions if we have some. Let's see, I'm gonna stop sharing. Hopefully you can all see me. Brittany asked, would a client be able to use Zoom on their phone? I usually use FaceTime because they don't always have a computer readily available. Yes, Brittany, Zoom has a mobile app, which is super awesome. Let me see, I've got mine somewhere in my sea of apps. Yeah, it's just an app. They don't have to pay for it. So part of, like, as a Healthie member, you don't, if you're using Zoom through Healthie, you don't have to subscribe as a provider to a paid Zoom account. But if you were doing this sort of your own way, your own business, you would pay for the Zoom, and it would be a free app that your clients download. And basically, when you create a webinar or a group session, just like you guys did to join this, they just get the link and they just click it. And if they do that from their phone, it will, and they've already have the Zoom app downloaded, it'll just pop open their app, the Zoom app. And then it'll look just like FaceTime. So the technology should be really easy for them to understand, but always having, with technology, always have those conversations up front. What is it gonna look like? How are you gonna work together? What are the apps or the tools that they may need to download? So I think that those conversations are important, but it is really easy for clients to use Zoom. All right, any other questions that we have? Let's see, we got one here. You see, Stevie, does Healthie platform have a consent form in the programs? If you're talking about group consent form, it's something that I can just send over. You actually might, if you're a new provider, you will have access to a lot of free policy forms and consent forms through Healthie that you can then edit and use for your practice. But if you're already using Healthie and you don't see it, just email me. I'm going to be able to, I'll just email it to you. And basically what you're going to do, and I can always connect you with Emma for customer success. It's super easy, but you can build your own forms and policies in Healthie using the form builder tool. And all you have to do is like copy and paste that into a policy form, and then you can drag a little signature box and agreement box and save it, and voila, you have a form that you can then add to your program. You can also add all of these forms through Healthie or as part of your new client paperwork. We call it an intake flow. And so I have these forms since I practice virtually. I have my telehealth consent form as part of my onboarding paperwork. And so clients fill out their information, they put in their credit card information, they sign my HIPAA form, they sign my telehealth consent form, and then I automatically have it all stored within their client profile. All right, and happy to talk to you more about that too, Stevie. Any other questions? All right, everyone. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you found this helpful. Again, I'm going to download this. I'll send you an email a little bit later with some of these resources, the consent forms, and then you'll have my email. So you can email me. I am always happy to be your resource, regardless of whether you're using Healthie or not. I'm here to help. And so feel free to ask some of your telehealth questions, and I can share more resources and more knowledge with you. All right. Hope you all have a great day, and thanks again for tuning in.